Hello and welcome. This is Eric from AG Racing Central. In the anti-gravity racing subgenre, there is a spectrum. This spectrum exists between the genre's two juggernaut franchises, F-Zero and Wipeout. On one hand, we have the lightning speeds and snappy controls of the colorful F-Zero games, and on the other hand is the more dynamic gameplay feel and gritty, realistic-looking Wipeout counterparts. If you like one franchise more than the other, or have equal love for both, is dependent on a multitude of factors. However, in this video I will focus on the F-Zero side of things and list a couple of games that you may want to check out if you are thirsting for a new entry in the series. Let's get started. In this video I will focus on games that are available to you right now by just logging into Steam or your console of choice and without any hassle, like installing an emulator for example. I will go through the actual F-Zero games that are available on Nintendo Switch and then move on to games similar to F-Zero available on both Nintendo Switch and other platforms. Finally, I'll give a couple of tips on upcoming games worth keeping your eye on. Feel free to jump to any of the sections you are more interested in. First up, we have the F-Zero games on Nintendo Switch. To play these games, you will need to be a Nintendo Switch Online Expansion Pass subscriber, which will set you back around $50 for a 12-month subscription. Among all the classic games that then become available to you, you will find the original F-Zero in the SNES collection. I don't want to bash on one of the most classic racing games ever made, but this little blast from the past is showing its age to say the least. It's fun to see where it all began and how intact the look, feel, music style and attitude of F-Zero has been retained over the years. And if you grew up playing this game, it must be a thrill to relive it again. But let's just say that there are other options out there. Like F-Zero X in the Nintendo 64 collection for example. This game has held up quite well and the version available on Nintendo Switch has super crisp graphics and flows really well. This game has a ton of unlockable ships, several race tracks and solid controls, and it's definitely still worth checking out. Finally, you have F-Zero 99. Yes, Nintendo decided that anti-gravity racing is the perfect genre for a battle royale game, and it actually works. It has a very retro-inspired SNES-looking art style, and even if it's chaotic, there are a lot of stuff to unlock that will keep you going. There's also several types of comeback mechanics and goals to strive for in your pursuit to become a top player. Moving on to the games that are reminiscent of F-Zero. If you want to play a game similar to F-Zero that is Switch exclusive, Fast RMX is probably your best bet. This is the third game in the Fast series by developer Shinnen Multimedia. The games have been developed exclusively for Nintendo's console, and it was almost like the series took up the mantle after Nintendo stopped making F-Zero games themselves. Fast RMX was a launch title for the Switch, and you can definitely feel the F-Zero DNA as soon as you pick up the controller. It has a slightly more modern and realistic art design, but the game is equally colorful and handles very similarly. Just like the game that inspired it, there are no weapons, only a side-shifting mechanic to knock your opponents off course. The handling of the ships you're piloting will determine how tight you can take the corners before you start drifting. Staying away from the walls is crucial for keeping your momentum, and this game does get very fast early in the campaign. Fast RMX also has the track design with nods to F-Zero, like when you race along a long cylinder for example. I might as well also mention that the game looks gorgeous and run at a smooth 60 FPS in both stationary and handheld mode, with a lower resolution on the latter. You can destroy your ship by hitting obstacles and going off the track, but there is no life bar energy that doubles as a boost resource. Instead you pick up orbs that fuse your boost gauge that you can activate at any time. The one thing that really sets this game apart is the phase shift mechanic. With the tap of a button you switch your ship's phase between blue and orange. If you hit a stretch or other area of the track with the corresponding phase activated, you get a significant speed boost, and with the wrong phase you will get a substantial drop in momentum. This mechanic adds another layer of strategy and also tests your track memorization and reaction time. You also have a large number of ships to pilot that all have different stats and a distinct feel on the track. One ship is a clear homage to a certain blue one from the F-Zero series. Fast RMX is a great game in itself, and probably also the closest you'll get to an F-Zero game on the Nintendo Switch that isn't an actual F-Zero game. There are of course options on other consoles as well. On more or less everything except the Switch, you can play Antigraviator for developer Cybernetic Walrus. This game may look a lot like Wipeout, but with its relatively straight and wide tracks and more grounded feel, it plays more like F-Zero. It even has the same type of side-shifting mechanic, and the game doesn't feature any weapons either. The tracks are all well designed with a very varying setting and the right amount of technical challenge. The presentation is good overall, and there's a generous amount of visual customization you can do with your grab, as the ships are called in this game. Other than steering, accelerating, air braking and side shifting, there's not a lot more when it comes to gameplay mechanics. However, the resource management system used in this game is quite unique. With the pickups you find on the track, you can do two things. Activate the boost to, you guessed it, go faster, or activate the trap. Traps are highlighted on a time-lapse in the top middle of the screen, and when any of your opponents closes in on them, the announcer gives you a cue that you can activate it. The traps do different things, like activate flamethrowers or drop blocks or other obstacles on the track. This system is a bit hit or miss, since it's hard to know what you did when you trap someone, and only occasionally will you get to actually see it. The number of ships and the performance customization is also a bit lackluster, but from a genuine gameplay perspective, Antigraviator is a solid title that is usually quite cheap too, especially when on sale. A game that is technically not a dedicated anti-gravity racing game, but that is usually associated with the genre, is Grip Combat Racing. In this dystopic and fast-paced racing game, you can control cars, very similar to the RC cars that can go upside down that you may have fond memories of from your childhood. And eventually, developer Cage Element also added anti-gravity vehicles as well. Even though the game looks quite different from F-Zero, it certainly plays in a similar way. You race as much on post-apocalyptic littered ground sections as you do on actual racetrack-looking circuits, but regardless, the game is much faster than most car racing games, and the stretches and curves are long and outdrawn, a feature present in most F-Zero-like games. The many kinds of weapons used in Grip is perhaps not something that was inspired by F-Zero, but much of the rest of the game most definitely was. There's a vast amount of customization you can do with your vehicles as well, and you unlock more of them the more you play the lengthy campaign. You will also find many different types of game modes, including the quirky Car Core mode, where you drive around a skate park-looking arena while looking for collectibles. This game has a strange relationship with gravity overall. If you want fast-paced racing in a very unique setting, Grip Combat Racing is worth checking out. A PS4 exclusive little title is the indie game Iron Driver. This is a short title with a limited amount of tracks, but it has a decent number of playable characters and certainly also its own style. The tracks feel a lot like F-Zero, and the controls as well, even if there's not a lot of gameplay mechanics. The F-Zero games are sometimes accused of being hard, and Iron Driver is too. The slightest touch of the wall will send you pinballing back and forth over the track, so careful cornering is critical. Once you get the hang of the controls though, making a perfect lap on some of the technical circuits is very rewarding, and even though the game is short-lived, the very low price tags makes the Iron Driver worth checking out. And then we have Redout 2. Redout 1 came out of nowhere from Italian developer studio 3-4 Big Things and got a lot of people into anti-gravity racing. Redout 2 followed a couple years later, and if it's a better game is debated frequently. But I think it's safe to say that the sequel did a good job of being more appealing to new players with the increased options for customization and plentiful tutorial levels. You might argue that Redout 2 is more similar to Wipeout than F-Zero, but I would stand firmly in that it falls right in the middle. The Redout games is its own thing, not trying to be either of the franchise juggernauts. Redout 2 advertises itself as the fastest racing game in the universe, and there is a strong focus on speed overall. The ships have a unique feel in their handling as well, with the right stick working as a strafe button. It's used for positioning on the straights, and in the corners you can strafe into the corner to reduce your turning ratio, or strafe outwards to initiate a drift. Your resources is a regular boost that when depleted drains your ship's energy, increasing the chance of blowing it up. And then there's the very powerful Hyper Boost, best used on very long stretches. There's a lot that's worth mentioning about this game, like the extremely lengthy campaign and its many unlocks of new ships and mods, the vast amount of visual and performance-oriented customization you can do, the dedicated community on Discord, but let's just leave it at that Redout 2 is a game you don't want to miss if you have the slightest interest in anti-gravity racing. There's also two games I want to mention that are not released yet, but they both have demos available. The first one is called Aero GPX from developer Aaron McDevitt, and you don't have to watch this trailer for a long time to see which franchise the game got its inspiration from. The colorful art style and cel-shaded look is very appealing, and one of the most notable features is the ship-to-ship combat, where you slam or spin attack your opponents while at the same time running the risk of destroying your own ship. There are also sections where you fly through boost rings in the air, and overall this game takes a lot of inspiration from other games in the genre, while still being unique in its own right. Another upcoming title to keep your eye on is from developer Feppard Games, and it's called XF Extreme Formula. Taking place in the year 3000, you travel across the entire solar system to take part in anti-gravity racing tournaments. The most notable things about this game has to be the super slick and extremely smooth gameplay, as well as the beautifully designed surroundings of the tracks. Both Aero GPX and XF Extreme Formula have demos available on Steam that you can play right now. Feel free to leave a comment if you think I missed a game that is similar to F-Zero. Also, to discover some more anti-gravity racing games you may not have heard of, click on this video. Thank you for watching. I am Eric from AG Racing Central, and I'll see you in the next video.